The silence in conference room B felt suffocating as Ellis closed his presentation with a smirk. My team sat frozen, 12 faces cycling through disbelief, confusion, and finally, devastation. "Let me make sure I understand," I said, keeping my voice unnaturally steady. "My team delivered 300% above target this quarter. We completely revolutionized the distribution system. We saved the company millions. And our reward is doubled workload with zero additional compensation." Ellis adjusted his Italian tie, his wedding ring catching the fluorescent light. "That's correct, Briar. Consider it a compliment. Your team clearly has capacity we haven't been utilizing." Faye, our data specialist who'd missed her sister's wedding to complete our biggest project, raised her hand like we were in school. "I'm already working 60-hour weeks. How exactly am I supposed to double that?" "Time management," Ellis replied without looking at her. "Perhaps fewer coffee breaks." Weston, who hadn't taken vacation in 3 years, pressed his palms flat against the table. "This doesn't make sense. The standard protocol is bonuses for exceeding targets. We didn't just exceed, we transformed the entire division's approach." Ellis sighed as if explaining to children. "Consider it a necessary adjustment for division harmony. Your performance has created tensions with other teams." "Tensions?" Liv, our newest team member, looked confused. "You're making others look bad," Ellis said bluntly. "Division harmony matters more than standout performance. The decision is final." I watched my people crumble before my eyes. Knox, who'd worked through his father's funeral week. Daphne, who'd postponed surgery to finish her project. All 12 faces reflected the same crushing realization. Excellence was being actively punished. While they looked broken, I felt something crystallize inside me, a strange, cold clarity I'd never experienced before. "Everyone on my team," I said, standing up. "My office. Now." Ellis raised an eyebrow. "We're not finished here, Briar." "We absolutely are." I gathered my things without rushing. "You've made your position crystal clear, and now I need to speak with my team." They followed me like mourners in a procession, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast. Once everyone squeezed into my modest office, I closed the blinds and locked the door. "Is this where you give us the pep talk about perseverance?" Ash asked, his voice hollow. "Because I'm not sure I have anything left to give." "No," I said, leaning against my desk. "This is where I tell you something that doesn't leave this room." 12 pairs of exhausted eyes focused on me. 3 months ago, when we first started significantly outperforming targets, I received a private message from someone I'd never met, Tegan Frost, the semi-retired board chair. The room stirred. Tegan was almost mythological, the woman who'd built the company from nothing 30 years ago. She noticed anomalies in our division's performance metrics and wanted to understand what was happening. We met for coffee, and she asked me a question I couldn't answer. Why does every high-performing team eventually get dismantled or handicapped in this company? Before I continue this story that's about to take a surprising turn, I want to thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this corporate revenge tale, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Your comments really help me know what type of content to create next. Now, let's get back to what happened in my office that day. My name is Briar Hawthorne, and until that moment, I'd been the consummate company loyalist. For 8 years, I'd climbed from entry-level analyst to team leader through sheer determination and strategic thinking. I never played office politics. I just delivered results and built the most effective team in our division's history. "So we designed a test," I continued, watching their expressions shift from dejection to curiosity. "We were lab rats?" Remy, our operations expert, asked, straightening in his chair. "Strategic players," I corrected. Tegan suspected that somewhere in middle management, innovation was being systematically crushed, excellence punished, but she needed proof. "So our amazing quarter was an experiment?" Cora asked, her voice tightening. "No, your incredible work was genuine, but we documented the leadership response. Would they nurture excellence or punish it? Today, we got our answer." I unlocked my bottom drawer and pulled out a folder I'd received that morning. "This isn't a pep talk. It's an exit strategy." "You're quitting?" Finn's voice cracked. "I'm evolving," I said, "and I'm inviting all of you to join me." The folder contained not severance packages or reassignments, but something much bolder, a fully funded spin-off venture, backed by Tegan herself, with positions for my entire team at 40% above our current salaries. She's creating a specialized subsidiary to develop what this company keeps squashing. She wants proven innovators who thrive under pressure. The energy in the room transformed from defeat to cautious excitement. "What's stopping the same thing from happening there?" asked Sage, our risk assessor. "Ownership structure. We'd each hold equity, and the operating agreement has specific protections against penalizing high performance." Vale, who'd been silent until now, looked skeptical. "Why didn't she just fix the problem here? She's on the board." "Corporate culture is harder to change than people think," I explained. "The board sees quarterly numbers, not daily operations." Tegan realized it would be faster to extract the talent and rebuild than to repair what's broken. "This is a lot to process," Liv said, rubbing her temples. "I understand. This isn't a decision to make lightly. Take the weekend, read the proposal, ask questions, but whatever you decide, keep this confidential until we move forward." As they filed out, stunned but thoughtful, Weston lingered. "You knew this was coming," he said quietly. "That's why you've been so calm lately." I smiled. "I suspected, but I needed to see how far they'd go. And if they'd rewarded us instead, then we would have stayed and built something amazing here." I shrugged. "Ellis made the choice for us." The weekend passed in a blur of messages and private conversations. Monday morning, 9 of my 12 team members confirmed they were joining me. 3 couldn't risk the change. Family obligations, mortgages, health insurance concerns. I respected their decisions and promised to help them transition to other teams where they might face less hostility. Then I submitted 9 resignation letters simultaneously. Ellis's reaction was immediate. An emergency meeting was called within the hour. "Whatever they've offered, I'll match it," Ellis said, his typically composed face now flushed. "Name your price." I studied him curiously. "It's not about money. It's about recognizing excellence instead of punishing it. This is about the workload adjustment. That was just a motivational tactic." Ellis backpedaled. "Of course there would have been bonuses eventually." "Eventually," I repeated. "That's exactly the problem." When Ellis learned where we were going, anger replaced desperation. "A subsidiary? That's corporate sabotage." "Actually," I replied calmly, "it's the natural consequence of telling top performers their problems rather than assets." He leaned across the table, voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "The board will never approve this subsidiary. I'll make sure of it." And that's when I smiled for the first time that day. A genuine smile that made Ellis pull back slightly. "They already have, unanimously." Turns out watching a division increase performance 300% only to be punished for it made quite an impression. His face drained of color. "Yesterday's meeting was confidential." "Not from board members," I replied. "Tegan attended virtually. Heard every word of your punishment speech." Ellis gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "You recorded that meeting? That's against company policy." Nobody recorded anything. Tegan was already there, observing quietly like she's been doing for months, watching how you manage top talent. The realization hit him visibly. Every dismissive comment, every time he'd taken credit for our work, every instance of undermining innovation, all witnessed by the company's founder. "This is a misunderstanding," Ellis stammered. "I was implementing strategies from the executive leadership program." "Which program suggests punishing excellence?" I asked, genuinely curious. His eyes darted around the room, searching for allies and finding none. 2 weeks' notice is standard. I expect all of you to properly transition your projects." Remy cleared his throat. "Our contracts only require 1 week for voluntary separation. We'll be thorough, but we're not staying 2 weeks." Ellis stood abruptly. "I'll be speaking with legal about this arrangement. Don't expect this transition to be smooth." After he stormed out, the 9 of us looked at each other, the magnitude of what we'd done settling in. There was no going back. "What now?" Daphne asked, voice shaky despite her resolve. "Now we prepare for turbulence," I said. "Ellis won't make this easy." I wasn't wrong. The next 7 days became increasingly hostile. Access permissions mysteriously disappeared. Files we needed for transition went missing. Security escorted us to and from the bathroom as if we might steal paper towels. On our final day, Ellis called me into his office alone. "You think you've won," he said, leaning back in his chair. "But Tegan is 73 years old, with health problems, When she steps away completely, who do you think the board will listen to about this little experiment of hers? I tilted my head. Is that a threat, Ellis? A reality check. You were always too idealistic, Briar. That's why you'll never advance beyond team leader. You don't understand how the game is played. I understand perfectly, I replied. I'm just choosing not to play a broken game anymore. He smiled thinly. Good luck with that. The business world runs on relationships, not performance metrics, and I have relationships with every executive in this industry. His words settled in my stomach like stones, not because I believed him, but because I recognized the threat. Ellis wouldn't stop at forcing us out. He would try to ensure we failed. As I packed my office, Weston appeared in the doorway. Everything okay? You look pale. Ellis made sure I understood there will be consequences beyond today. Weston lowered his voice. He's been calling clients, suggesting we were pushed out for performance issues. My hand froze midway to a framed photo. How do you know? Jasper in client relations texted me. Ellis had him pull our entire client list this morning. This complicated everything. We weren't just leaving with our skills and experience. We needed those client relationships to make the new venture succeed. Team meeting at Parlor Cafe in 30 minutes, I decided. Everyone needs to hear this. The cafe across from our office building became our first war room. 9 nervous faces crowded around tables, hastily pushed together. We always knew Ellis would retaliate. I began without preamble. Now we know how. He's poisoning the well with clients. Can he do that? Liv asked. Legally, it's risky, said Knox, who'd worked in legal before joining my team. It'll be subtle, raised eyebrows, pointed questions about why we all left suddenly. So what do we do? Faye asked. We need those client relationships. I'd been asking myself the same question since talking with Weston. Our original plan had been a clean break, finish our notice period professionally, then spend 2 weeks setting up the new venture before approaching clients. Now we needed to accelerate everything. We adapt, I said finally. Ellis thinks business runs on relationships, not performance. Let's prove him half right. What does that mean? Ash looked confused. It means we call every client tonight, not to poach them. That violates our contracts. We call to say goodbye, to thank them for the partnership, to wish them well. And when they ask why we're leaving, Cora pressed. We tell the truth, I said simply. Not to damage Ellis, but because it's the truth. We achieved record results, and were told excellence wasn't valued. We found a place where it is. That's risky, Sage said, always the cautious one. Less risky than letting Ellis control the narrative? I countered. We know these clients. They value results. They've seen what we've delivered. Uncertainty hung in the air until Daphne straightened her shoulders. I'm in. My clients trust me. They should hear this from me first. One by one, others nodded. We divided the client list and dispersed to make personal calls. From coffee shops, park benches, and car seats across the city. I took the 3 most significant accounts, including Meridia Systems, our largest client. Their director, Adira, answered on the second ring. Briar, everything okay? You never call after hours. I took a deep breath. I'm calling with personal news. Today was my last day at the company. Silence then. What happened? You were just promoted last year. I explained briefly, sticking to facts without embellishment. When I finished, Adira was quiet for so long I thought we'd lost connection. That explains the strange call I got from Ellis this afternoon, she finally said. He mentioned team restructuring for optimal client service. I assumed someone was getting promoted. What else did he say? That your team was being redistributed to better serve client needs. That we'd be assigned a new, more experienced team leader. Adira paused. He strongly implied you couldn't handle the pressure of managing high-value accounts. Despite expecting this, hearing it confirmed made my throat tighten. 8 years of exemplary service, reduced to a lie. Where are you going next? Adira asked. I hesitated. I can't solicit business, but I can tell you I'm joining a new venture with most of my team. Interesting, she said. Very interesting. Ellis is coming by tomorrow to introduce my new team contact. Perhaps you and I should have breakfast before that meeting. By midnight, similar conversations had played out across the city. 7 clients had requested meetings with us as friends before committing to their new teams. It wasn't poaching if they sought us out. The next morning, as I headed to meet Adira, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Is this Briar Hawthorne? a crisp voice asked. Yes, who's calling? Julian Mercer, Board of Directors. We need to meet. Immediately. My stomach dropped. May I ask what this is regarding? Ellis has filed a formal complaint accusing you and your team of client theft, corporate espionage, and violation of non-compete agreements. These are serious allegations, Miss Hawthorne. They're also completely false, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. That remains to be determined. The board is convening an emergency session at 11 a.m. Your presence is required. As I ended the call, a text from Tegan appeared. Don't panic. Remember the plan. But there was a problem. We didn't have a plan for this. The board meeting felt like walking into an ambush. 12 stern faces lined the massive table, with Ellis seated at one end, a satisfied smirk playing at his lips. Julian Mercer, who'd called me earlier, gestured to an empty chair at the opposite end. Miss Hawthorne, thank you for joining us on short notice. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral despite the hammering in my chest. Of course. Scanning the room, I noticed Tegan was absent. My one ally, nowhere to be seen. We've received disturbing allegations, Julian continued, sliding a folder across the table. Mr. Brooks claims you and your team have violated multiple clauses of your employment contracts. I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of call logs, meeting schedules, and client emails, all highlighted and annotated to paint the worst possible picture. Ellis claims you orchestrated a mass client exodus, Julian explained. That you used confidential information to solicit business for your new venture. I closed the folder carefully. That's categorically false. You deny contacting clients after hours yesterday? Ellis interjected. I don't deny calling clients to inform them of my departure. That's professional courtesy, not solicitation. And these breakfast meetings scheduled with 7 major clients? Ellis pushed a printed calendar across the table. Just coincidence? Those meetings were requested by the clients after learning of my departure. Ellis laughed. And you expect the board to believe they spontaneously requested these meetings without any prompting? Yes, I said simply. Because it's the truth. Julian cleared his throat. Regardless of who initiated, these meetings create the appearance of impropriety. With respect, I countered. Informing clients of a departure and accepting their invitation to meet doesn't violate any contract terms. Our non-compete prevents us from actively soliciting business for 12 months. It doesn't prevent clients from seeking us out. Ellis's smile faltered slightly. She's twisting the language to justify theft of company resources. What resources have I stolen, Ellis? I asked directly. Intellectual property, client relationships, team members. Client relationships don't belong to the company, I replied evenly. They're built on trust between individuals, and people aren't resources to be owned. A woman at the far end of the table, I recognized her as Nora, the finance director, leaned forward. Miss Hawthorne, while your point about relationship ownership has merit, the timing appears suspicious. 9 resignations submitted simultaneously, followed by immediate client outreach. I nodded, acknowledging her concern. I understand how it looks, but consider our perspective. After delivering unprecedented results, we were told our reward was punishment, doubled workloads with no compensation. When we resigned, Ellis began contacting clients, mischaracterizing our departures. We had no choice but to correct the record. So you admit coordinating this response, Ellis pounced. I admit to leading my team through a difficult transition that you made unnecessarily hostile. The boardroom door opened, and Tegan Frost entered, leaning slightly on a cane. The energy in the room shifted immediately. Sorry I'm late, she said, her voice stronger than her frail appearance suggested. Traffic was terrible. Julian stood. Miss Frost, we weren't expecting you. Evidently not, she replied dryly, taking a seat midway down the table. But when I heard about this emergency session regarding the team I've been personally monitoring, I thought my perspective might be relevant. Ellis's expression tightened. With all due respect, Tegan, you've been semi-retired for years. You may not have the full picture of operational challenges. I've been semi-retired, not semi-conscious, Tegan retorted, earning a few suppressed smiles from board members. And I've been watching this situation unfold for months. She turned to the board. What Ellis isn't telling you is that I personally recruited Briar and her team for a special project after witnessing how innovation was being systematically suppressed in our core business. Ellis's face reddened. That's completely. Let me finish. Tegan cut him off sharply. The board approved the subsidiary 3 months ago. It's in the minutes you all apparently didn't read before convening this inquisition. Several board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. The legal department cleared the transition plan, Tegan continued, including the client communication protocol that Briar followed precisely. I wasn't informed of any subsidiary, Ellis insisted. No, you weren't, Tegan agreed, because your management style was what we were testing. The room fell silent as the implications settled. Ellis had unknowingly been the subject of evaluation, not the evaluator. Julian shifted uncomfortably. This is unusual, Miss Frost. Innovation often is, she replied coolly. For a moment, I allowed myself to relax. Tegan had arrived like a deus ex machina to resolve the situation, but Ellis wasn't finished. He slid another document across the table. Even if the subsidiary was approved, these performance metrics tell the real story. Briar's team has consistently misrepresented their achievements. The supposed 300% improvement was statistical manipulation. I felt the blood drain from my face. He was attacking our results, our legitimacy. That's absurd, I protested. Our numbers were independently verified. By whom? Ellis challenged. Your own team members. Hardly independent. I opened my mouth to argue, but Julian raised his hand. Let's examine the evidence. If there were misrepresentations, that would change matters significantly. Ellis smugly pushed forward spreadsheets and charts I'd never seen before, showing our projects underperforming, timelines missed, budgets exceeded. None of it matched reality, but it looked convincing. These are fabricated, I said, disbelief coloring my voice. They're from our central database, Ellis countered. Entered by your team leads. That's when it clicked. The missing access permissions during our final week. The mysterious IT maintenance that locked us out of performance dashboards. Ellis hadn't just been delaying our transition, he'd been rewriting history. Tegan studied the documents with narrowed eyes. These don't match the reports I've seen. With respect, Ellis said smoothly. You've been seeing curated information. These are the raw numbers. The board members looked uncertainly between us. I could feel the tide turning back in Ellis's favor. Without access to the original data, how could I prove these were falsified? Just as despair threatened to overtake me, my phone vibrated. A text from Faye. Check your email, now. I glanced down at my screen to see dozens of incoming messages, all with attachments. May I respond to these allegations with evidence? I asked Julian, who nodded. I took a deep breath. When our team noticed unusual system activities last week, we became concerned about data integrity. So each team member independently archived all project documentation, client correspondence, and performance metrics. Not company property, just the record of our own work. Ellis's confidence wavered visibly. That's not possible. Actually, it's standard backup protocol, I said, opening my laptop. The company handbook encourages maintaining personal work records. I projected onto the boardroom screen a side-by-side comparison. Ellis's doctored reports versus our archived originals, complete with authentication, timestamps, and system logs. These records show the actual performance metrics, I explained, scrolling through irrefutable evidence. And more importantly, they show exactly when and how the official records were altered last week. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Board members leaned forward, expressions hardening as they realized the manipulation they'd almost been drawn into. Julian turned to Ellis, voice dangerously quiet. You falsified company records to discredit a departing team? Ellis's composure cracked. They were leaving anyway, taking clients, destroying team cohesion. Because you punished them for excellence, Tegan interrupted. The very behavior we built this company to reward. It wasn't punishment, Ellis insisted desperately. It was strategic resource allocation. By doubling workloads without compensation? Nora asked incredulously. Ellis looked around the table, finding no allies. You don't understand the pressures middle management faces, the contradictory demands, the impossible metrics. I think we understand perfectly now, Julian said coldly. This meeting is adjourned. Ellis, stay. Everyone else may go. As I gathered my things, Tegan caught my eye and nodded slightly. Outside, my team waited anxiously. In the lobby. What happened? Knox asked immediately. I smiled, the tension of months finally releasing. Ellis just learned why you don't mess with data specialists. Did Faye's package help? Remy asked. It was perfect timing, I confirmed. How did you know? Faye shrugged. Ellis was too smug yesterday. We figured he had something planned. Daphne checked her watch. I hate to break up this moment, but I have a client breakfast in 20 minutes. Technically not our clients anymore, Cora reminded her. Not yet, I agreed, but soon. Over the next 3 months, our new venture took shape in ways I could never have predicted. Without the constraints of Ellis's leadership style, innovation flourished. Our first major project launched 6 weeks ahead of schedule. And those breakfast meetings? 7 became 12, then 20. Not because we poached clients, but because word spread about what we were building. 6 months later, I received an unexpected invitation, the annual Company Leadership Summit, not as a participant, but as a keynote speaker. The topic, Cultivating Excellence Without Fear. As I prepared my presentation, an email arrived from Julian Mercer. Thought you'd want to know. After a comprehensive leadership review, several changes have been implemented. Ellis is no longer with the company. His position has been eliminated in the restructuring. Attached was the new organizational chart. The entire middle management layer had been reimagined. Teams were now structured around innovation hubs, rather than hierarchical reporting lines. The email continued. The board has recognized the systematic issues you helped expose. We're implementing new incentive structures that reward exceeding targets rather than punishing standout performance. At our 1-year celebration, Tegan raised a glass to our team, now partners rather than subordinates, to recognizing the difference between being punished for excellence and being rewarded for it, Ash added. And to Briar, who made one call that changed everything. I smiled, thinking of that first coffee with Tegan. Actually, she called me. I just answered. Sometimes, that's all it takes. Answering when opportunity calls, even if it means leaving behind everything you thought was secure, because excellence should never be punished. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't destroying what's broken, but building something better. If you enjoyed this story of corporate revenge and justice, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of workplace triumph. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been punished for excellence? How did you respond? Your experiences might inspire the next story I tell. Until next time, remember, your worth isn't determined by those who can't recognize it.